Hey there, this is Dr. Pam Perry, and we are going to talk today about 7 ways to build media relationships. I had a long conversation today with a fellow journalist who's been a journalist for over 25 years or so. But one of the things is that they gave us the tea on what it is that if you want press, what you need to do. So we're going to talk about it right after this. This is a solo show. We're going to have some of the Ready, Set, Go Speak community join us and chime in. Feel free to answer questions as well. So, right after this, we're going to talk about what are the 7 ways to build media relationships to get press. How about that?
Welcome to the Get Out There and Get Known podcast. Join Pam Perry, veteran PR strategist, Emmy award-winning producer and publisher of Speakers Magazine, who will show you how to crack the code in getting out there to get known. Each week, she either interviews her media friends, PR colleagues, or she just goes solo, offering you strategies on publicity, publishing, and platform building. So listen up to hear how to get booked on media places and on superstar stages. Now, here's your host, Pam Perry.
Okay, so we're going to talk about this. Won't be long, but people always want to get in the press. They want to get the front page of the newspaper. They want to get on television. They want to be that expert that gets called by like the CNN or the MSNBC. It is a lot, right, for people to actually come forward and do that. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how do you build those media relationships? And talking with Ken Coleman, who I have known since 1990, right? This is Ken here, way back in the day. And we met through um, being in Detroit, being in journalism myself and media. I worked for the Detroit Free Press. Met Ken when he was actually at WQBH. Backtrack, WQBH was the first African American radio station owned and operated by Martha Jean the Queen. So I'm gonna give a shout out. I'm part of a group called Black Women in Radio. So Black Women in Radio, they have a museum and all that kind of stuff. So they know about Martha Jean the Queen. Actually, her name was Martha Jean Steinberg. Long story about where that Steinberg came in. She did marry the Jewish men, but met Ken, and he was a news reporter back then. Ken then went on to become like the editor of the Black newspaper here, which is the Michigan Chronicle. Always had a relationship with him. And so networking is a big part of media relations. Yes, you need a good story. You need to match it to the outlet. That's how you get it. But people do things for people that they know, like, and trust. And so we're going to talk about what are some of those trust factors that gives you that equity to have the reporter say yes to your story so that you can leverage their platform for your gain. Now, this is the thing. Don't just think you're going to use their platform for your gain and it's just one way, because it is a two-way street. I'm Black. You see, I got my little newspaper thing on here. I'm Black, and people who are Black have an affinity for each other. That's just a given. Just like people who are Jewish have an affinity for people who are Jewish. People who are Asian have an affinity for Asian. Typically, now we know from LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook who is Black as a reporter, what their beats are. Even if they aren't Black, these kind of things that I'm going to drop today about the 7 things that you need to build relationships are going to seem like common sense. But I actually talked with Ken today, and he gave me a whole notebook full of notes. Let me give you the tip number 1 that he said that irritates him the most, though. So we'll go with what you shouldn't do before what you should do. You shouldn't send out a press release once, twice, 3. I know we have to follow up. We have to be persistent. And I teach that in my Ready, Set, Go Speak community all the time. You do need to be persistent, but don't send an email, the same email over and over again, and just say, just following up. He said that burns him because you can usually see from the subject line, you haven't changed the subject line. And then you can see the first line from the email, just following up. And it's like, okay, if you don't hear anything and you send the same thing 4 or 5 times, yeah, some things get lost, but the lazy way is just to resend it back and just say, just following up. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about what are some of the smart ways. I've been a publicist for over 30 years. And nothing has really changed. Technology has changed. Obviously, we have a lot of automation and things like that. But the main thing in order to get press is to know who covers what, know about the timing, make sure it's relevant, and because they're journalists, make sure it's news. So I'm gonna bring up something that Lindsay, I'm gonna bring you up to the stage here to kind of talk about your news break that you had for your client because you hear me talk about this all the time about pitching. The medias would give you this right here. The media aren't running around roving the streets with a notepad looking for news. Okay, they have to be pitched. So we got to get over it if we want to get pitched, or either you use a publicist and we pitch for you. But pitching is part of it because unless something is trending, they're really not going to know what you're doing. So Lindsay, I'm gonna bring you up. Hey there, sir. How are you?
Hey, what's going on, Pam?
Good, good. So tell us recently about the Washingtonian. And before you kind of get into that, tell people a little bit about who you are and what you do and why this is important, like for your business.
Sure. I am a cooking show advisor. I teach chefs how to start a cooking show and turn it into a business, a revenue generating business, so they can not stand in the hot kitchen all day, every day, burning themselves up and not making enough money, or running catering businesses where they're doing all of this physical labor, or restaurants and it's a treadmill that you can't get off. You're just trading time for money. And so we live in a time now where you can take your knowledge online and sell it and make money that way. And a cooking show is an excellent way for chefs to do that. And that's what I teach them how to do. One of my clients who started working with just a few months ago, we created a cooking show. And Washingtonian Magazine is a big deal where we are in our region. It's a lifestyle publication. Yep, that's the screenshot. I actually got the magazine. I need to run downstairs and grab it.
Yep, that's it right there. It's a 500,000 subscribers, almost
Half a
400,000.
million,
400,000.
and
So
it's
400,000.
it's an upscale publication. It's a big deal where we are. And so I just sent an email. I saw an article in it on Instagram. I saw an article on Instagram that it was about somebody who was selling plates out of their home kitchen. An African woman who was making some kind of whatever it was. She was basically just selling plates out of her home kitchen. And I'm looking at this going, you got to be kidding me. We got all these restaurant owners out here who are paying a fortune to own these restaurants, and you writing about somebody cooking out of their home kitchen. So I said, let me just try it. I'll send an email to this writer and say, hey, I got a chef, an African chef. She's out of Cameroon. She's doing some really innovative stuff with she's taking traditionally meat-based African dishes and Caribbean dishes, and she's creating vegan versions of them, so people are able to experience these flavors that they otherwise never would have been able to, because the dishes are just meat-based. And I sent him a link to her YouTube channel where we had all of these videos where she's teaching. It's a cooking show, and so he got to check her out in that way, and decided to go ahead and interview her. And this is so where she is in Frederick, Maryland, is about 50 miles away from DC. So this is quite a trip to go. And I asked him, how far are you willing to go? And he's like, yeah, this is about the limit. It's about as far as I'm willing to go for a story. So he made that trek out there to interview her. And it was originally supposed to be just a little web story. And then after having a conversation with her and experiencing her food, he decided to make it upgraded to a real story that went into the print publication. And
How
so
long did it
that
take?
it just
What's the timeline?
that this is May. So it was March. He came out there and did the interview. I sent the email. He came out there like within 2 weeks. So this all happened in March, and it was supposed to be a web story that came out the next day or two in March, and then it didn't come out. And he told us, so then it got upgraded basically
To the print version. Mhm.
to the print version. So they did more stuff, and then sent out the staff photographer to go do a photo shoot and all of that. And so still the whole, start to finish couple of months.
Hmm. And I just wanted people to know the process of that, the timing of that. And one of the things that you said that Ken said, and a lot of my journalist friends say, is that tie into news or know the beat of the reporter. And so one of the things that you need to know is what is the news of the day to tie into, or what is the news period. So you have to have a nose for news. So it can't always just be about a book, about your subjects, or about what you and do. You're tying into the overall. So you knew the Washingtonian, and you asked him, it says, how far are you willing to go? It's not really within Washington. It was in Fredericksburg, Virginia, but it's within the area. But you saw that he had a affinity for African type of what people are doing in the area in the African. So that was a good story for him. But the thing that you did is that you sent the email and you sent a link. The other thing that you, in order to build a relationship with the media, is don't bug them. Don't send them a whole bunch of stuff. Don't send them your media kit. Don't send them a PDF download of your book. Don't send them about 5 pages of all the accolades of everything you did. Send them a short, if you can, bulleted about why this is important and why now. Do you happen to know what it is that you said to give everyone an idea of what a short pitch sounds like? Because the YouTube link was the clincher, but they had to even open it in order to get it. And so you saw the byline. Every story has a byline. Every story. You can read Essence, you could dream about being in Oprah, but they all have bylines, and those bylines are by real people. So how many people even look at the bylines? Because I'm a journalist, I always look at the bylines because sometimes it's people I know. It could be Cassandra Spratling or whatever who writes for Essence. And I'll look at the bylines and then I follow the people. And then I just see what it is that they're into. So do you remember what it is that you said?
I just pulled up the email. So for the subject line, the story was about a lady. Her name is Attia, Attia, and her business or business. I don't think it was actually a business. The story was about Attia's kitchen or something. So I just used that as the subject. I put Attia's kitchen, read the
Okay.
story, and so
That
now
part.
in the
Wait,
subject.
let's stop right there. So the psychology of this, and this is what he's saying, is that I read your story. So it's not about, hey, I want you to do this for me, but I paid attention to what you did. So in any psychology of any relationship building, it's not always about what it is. It's like if you're dating, it's like, hey, I really like your dress you have on. You don't walk up to somebody who you're trying to get to know. It's like, hey, ain't I sharp? So you said you put it in there. It's going to bring his attention because it was a story that he just wrote. Timeliness is of the thing, because every writer, they're writing so much in a cave, I guess you would say. So they want to know if people are really paying attention. So paid attention, and then you went into, I read your story, and you then gave them a reason why they should now listen to you. Okay, so he's read my story. So why are you contacting me? How did you find the email? How hard was it to find the email?
It was at the bottom of the article.
That is that part right there. Can I tell you? We both work for the Gannett newspaper. They are required to put their emails in their stories. Why? Because that's their job, to get news tips. And if they're not at the bottom of the story, I love print publications. They're not at this, you can always put their name in Google, they're going to show up, or you'll probably see it on Twitter. You'll find that they will be on Twitter. So it's right at the bottom. Okay, go on, continue. So you find the email at the bottom of the story.
Yeah. So I put read your story, Ike, and it immediately made me think of Motherland Kitchen. Motherland Kitchen was a link, a hyperlink to what did I put that to? Her website, I think.
Oh, okay.
Is it?
Or
Nope, it was to her YouTube channel. So
channel.
that first link, so that first sentence has a link to her YouTube channel.
And it's quick.
And so it was related, especially so read your story, Ike, and it immediately made me think of Motherland Kitchen, especially the part at the end about commercial rents causing Attia to consider leaving the area. A chef I work with had to leave DC for that same reason, and it's the truth. She
Mhm.
had a ghost kitchen in DC, and then to expand into the DC market, and then had to shut it down because it was just too expensive. And
Mhm.
so then just told him briefly that Sabina's Cameroonian, owner of Motherland Kitchen. She specializes in Afro Caribbean dishes. Uh, and blah, she shut down the kitchen because it was costing too much. And we created a cooking show to take her business online. You might want to, check it out and see if you're interested in doing a story. Uh, I put when you do another food story, Sabina would be an excellent chef to consider. And I put that she can teach people about fonio, which most folks don't know about, which is the next big superfood that most of the world has never heard of. But climate change is going to change that because fonio can grow in drought conditions that other grains cannot. So fonio it's a superfood. You can use it to replace rice, replace quinoa.
Oh,
It has a
okay.
lot of protein in it. It's gluten free. It's hypoglycemic. It's 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 almost too good to be true. It's like if you could engineer a perfect food that would help people who have allergies and different eating disorders and such health conditions. Could you put all of that into one food? And actually, fonio is that, and it
So
grows in
so he's
almost
a
no water.
but he would care about that because he writes
He's
about
a food writer.
there you go.
He's a food writer, and
Mhm.
climate change, and we're all going to care about it because with climate change, the crops that we're traditionally eating, rice, wheat, and all these things that require all this water, we're not going to be able to do that. Fonio grows in pretty much drought conditions, and
So
this is
now
like a
you're giving
huge thing.
so now you're giving him, in terms of news of why he
Insights.
cares, is a scoop. It's a scoop,
Yeah,
and it's a
yeah.
real living person. So one of my favorite reporters is Nicole Hannah-Jones. I love Nicole Hannah-Jones. She does so much research. She did the 1619 project. She does so much Pulitzer Prize winner. She does so much research, and she's always looking for stories. If it's her beat, if it's about reparations, if it's about uh, trauma of blacks and slavery, she is a person that's going to know everything about it. They're going to know all about it. So maybe he was already working on a story, or maybe she just did a story. So he already has all these notes. He's got pages and pages of notes. It's like, okay, well, what am I going to do with these notes? I need new legs for this story. I need a new angle. I need something new because I already have all the notes. I already care about this. So now Ike can say to his editor, I have a story idea. You gave it to them. They are paid to write stories, but before they even write the stories, they need story ideas. So it is their job 24/7. They have to fill a news hole. Not only do they have to fill in the print, but now they have web stuff. So how many, I don't know how many stories Ike has to do. He might have to do 4 or 5 stories a week. So they're always looking, but what I'm trying to say is that when we build relationships with media, you just can't pitch them anything. You got to pitch them something of substance. He pitched them a link. Lindsay, that was like the best thing you could do because now I could watch it. So one of the things that the story then runs. So this is a whole nother thing. This is not even part of this, but leveraging that media that she needs to do, and then also making sure that you build the relationship with Ike. So it's just like it's not a one and done. Ike is going to always have to write. So maybe not next week, but he may eventually become your go-to. And it may not necessarily be something for your client. It could be something that could help Ike because he's always in the business of writing stories. So hey Ike, I know of such and such, just to be nice, just to be helpful for all the Ready Set Go Speak. Sometimes if you know of a reporter that is looking for a source, just give them a source. It may not necessarily be you, but someone that you're connected to that might be helpful to them, because it may not, that seed is planted. So the next time you call up on them, they'll be able to answer your call, do something with your story. And that's really, really key, because finding that relationship now at this point, Ike is a friend. You can be a good friend. You can follow him on Twitter, follow him on LinkedIn, uh, retweet his stuff. That is one of the things that Ken said. In order to build a relationship, he said to make sure that you follow us and also comment on our stories, not just the story that he wrote about you, but any other stories that you naturally feel is good. Because believe it or not, they want to be stroked. They want affirmation. They want the accolades. They want people to say, hey, attaboy, that a girl, whatever, just like anybody else would. So media relations are just, that part is really, really key. Because I think people think that if I have a list of a database of media, I could send out a press release, click, BCC, everybody hit send. That ain't gonna work. That never works. As a publicist, I was trained that never works. Each individual pitch has to be personalized. Is that a lot of work? If you have a media database of, pages and pages of people, yes, a lot of work, because each one has to be personalized. So people are like, ooh, publicists cost so much money. Okay, well, each individual pitch is personalized for each one. So how do you personalize a pitch? You got to know about the person. You knew they were the food writer. And you knew enough about the Washingtonian to know that it's a big deal. So you didn't just like, hey, write a story on my client. I mean, you put some thought into it, and it was personalized. So he knew that you weren't pitching everybody. He knew it, because it was like you knew too much about him. Yes, you knew too much. Now, reporters are smart, just like everybody else. They know when everybody's pitching them. They know that they're pitching 100 people because it's not personalized. So they're like, you know what? I'm not going to cover that. They pitching 100 people. They'll probably get somebody. So that is really, really like the main thing. I pulled up a couple of reports and I put it in Ready, Set, Go, Speak, and it was a state of journalism. And I wanted people to kind of realize about journalists themselves, that they work long hours, they work extra days, they are tired, they are bombarded, they don't have time to read long emails and to read lazy emails that just say following up. Okay, that's really, really the key. One of the main things that understand, we have to be repetitive. We have to follow up. You didn't have to follow up because that was timely right then and there, right? Because he then took a couple of weeks or whatever. Roughly give people about a week or two, unless it's really, really timely, then you can follow up the next day. But give people about 5 to 10 days to follow up with you. If you don't hear anything, then it is appropriate to nicely follow up, but don't pester. Nobody wants to be pestered. Nobody wants to be pestered. Now, sometimes I will tell people that we have to do things that are maybe unconventional. And Kim was saying that sometimes we could do things that are cute. Sometimes we could do things that really are out of the box rather than the email. Sometimes, how about picking up the phone if you see a phone number? It's like they very rarely get phone calls. Everybody is emailing them
anymore.
Nobody call. He says, if someone calls me, I may let it go to voicemail, but I will listen to the message, because sometimes the message will be transcribed. But he knew the person took the time to call them. We know that in the age of automation that we can automate all this stuff. So they're like, I'm not going to even bother. So calling helps. But what he said was the best thing, and this is not even number one of the 7. The best thing that you can do to make a personalized pitch is to go to something like Loom, or even put it on your phone and record a video message and send it to them. Explain to them why this story is news for them, it's timely, and it's relevant. That's all it is. It's news, it's timely, and it's relevant. Say it in a pitch. We talk about pitches all the time at Ready, Set, Go, Speak. We talk about pitching, and you know how to pitch. And then the who, what, when, where, and why. If you want, attach the link to the press release that's online. Don't attach it when you send the video, just attach the link to it. And then that way they hear you, because he said, yeah, he says, Pam, that's a great idea. He said, I would love that. If someone sent me a video, he says, I wouldn't have to read. I could just punch it. He said, or listen to a voicemail message. He says, because I get on the average about 300 to 400 emails a day of pitches. That's not even outside of the other stuff, right? So you got 400 pitches a day. First thing you're reading is a subject line, which is a whole other thing about getting people to open up a subject line. He said one of the things that makes a subject line really worth opening is knowing like why I should open and why I should care. Why I should open now and why I should care. So when you're creating that type of pitch, the subject line is the most important thing. It doesn't matter what's on the inside if they don't open it, just like we do when we're marketing. So he said the best person, because it's political, he says the best person to really watch the people who do these type of letters are the politicians who are sending these emails out. And some of the subject lines will say, "This is serious." Makes you want to open. Or he says any of the politicians that are campaigning, they have their campaign writers write these emails to reporters to get them to open. He says, so really monitor that. So those are one of the main things. And he says, if people don't respond, it's fine. It's no, but sometimes give them a different angle of why they would respond. If it's, and he did say this. So this is one of the things to get people to understand. Give it a fresh presentation. Give it a fresh approach. Give it timeliness. Timeless could be, oh, it's you wrote a book about love, Valentine's Day. I talked to a client the other day and she was like, I'm so, my book is just not really moving like I should. And I said, well, what's going on? She says, well, I wrote this book, this and that, and I'm pitching it. And, you've taught me how to pitch, but it's not getting any more legs. And the book is about cycling. I said, what month is May? And she says, Memorial Day. I said, yeah, that besides that, every month has a month. It was National Cycling Month, National Bike Cycling Month. She rode her bike from Portland, Oregon to Portland, Maine. It was all about cycling. Her and her husband. I said, get off my phone and go and write a pitch that is National Cycling Month and then go and send it. You will get traction because it's National Cycling Month. And the cycling, if you're a cycler, it's like 1 million people in this that are into cycling, bike cycling. And so they're looking for fresh stories and this and that. And I said, even connect with the Cycling Association. So you have to know what's going on in the news at the time and then what months match your message. What is National Food Month? Whatever. We got Sharon on the ABC affiliate because NBC affiliate in DC because it was talking about food and talking about soul food. And we was really trying to go about the Super Bowl, but we kind of missed that window. So really towards the end of the month, Black History Month, we're talking about soul food and the type of food that she cooks. Soul food, we know we love, but it could be a little unhealthy on the arteries and things like that. So she talked about how to substitute soul food, and to love your heart. So it was this is what PR people call spin. There was a whole lot of spin in there. We spin it so that it can fit. And working with the producer of the show, we actually put it together so that we could spin the story. But that's what it is. But when I sent the pitch to the producer. And that's the other thing. We need to know who to send what to, how the newsroom works and who to send what to. Just because you see the anchor doesn't make the decisions. So send it to her and send a link to a story, a long form story. So everybody in Ready, Set, Go Speak. Eva has one, a long story. Linda has a long form story. So you put a story in the link to them for broadcast. So broadcast doesn't mind reading print, but really they don't want you to send, if it's NBC, don't send them your ABC link. They can find it on their own, but it's almost like a jab, like, look what ABC did, or look what WUSA did. Look, it's like, let them find that, or put it in the story and then they can find it. So when you're pitching broadcast, send them print, or if you're pitching print, send them broadcast. You got what I'm saying? So if you're pitching print, you send them a broadcast link. If you're pitching broadcast, send them a print link. Those two match and meld. Don't do the same one. If you were featured in a newspaper, the Baltimore Banner, don't send them a print link from another publication. It's a taboo thing. I can't even explain it, but human nature it's kind of like, well, hey, you already got TV, so why are you sending me this link? That kind of thing. That's what you don't want. So you want to make sure you're doing that. If you have any questions, let me look in the comments over here. That might help. It says, what's the best way to pitch on the phone? Just like you would in the email, just like you would, like what Lindsay just said. Hey, I just saw that you just wrote a story about blah, 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 blah. I found that very interesting. I thought you would be, the same thing you would do in the email, you would leave on there. But if you do get them and you're not leaving a message, because you're basically leaving a voicemail message the same as you would an email, the same as you would a video. You're doing a pitch. You're doing a 30-second elevator pitch. Call it elevator pitch because it's 30 seconds, not longer than that. If you go on and on, they're going to hang up and it's like, you know what? I don't have time to be listening to all that. So you're going to do elevator pitch. But if you do get them on the phone, especially in the assignment desk in a news station, what is the first thing you say with anybody that you call? Is this a good time? They'll say yes or no. Hi, my name is such and such. Is this a good time? If they say yes, you'll say this will only take 2 minutes or less. You want to build a rapport first before you say, hi, my name is such and such, and I have a story, this and this and this. They could be on deadline. They could be, they're at the assignment desk. So it's just like, you have to know if this is a good time. I personally do like calling, or sometimes if I have their phone number, I will text them and say, hey, do you have a sec? And that's what I did with Ken. I said, hey, do you have a sec? And he said yes. And we ended up speaking for more than a sec. So that's one of the things. So knowing if something is deadline oriented, of whether they're going to open that. One of the things that he said is you want to identify the beat. In case you don't know what beats are, newspapers have beats. So you can usually tell in a newspaper, obviously, a sports beat, you're going to be sports writers. But if there's a feature section, you know that they have a certain beat, even within the feature section of a newspaper. So because I grew up in this whole world, I know beats backwards and forwards. And you kind of know sometimes people write on race relations. Those might be good for you, Eva, to all the people who write on race relations or business in corporate or education reporters, medical reporters. There's just a very, very easy way to find all of these. One of it is Cision, which is a very expensive PR tool, or Muck Rat. And Janine, I think you've been on Muck Rat. And she says, oh my God, I love Muck Rat. Muck Rack. Yeah, that's the name of it. Muck Rack. It's an old PR term. So Muck Rack is a good way. But by far the best way sometimes to find all of the media, Twitter, because they're on there, and they'll also have within their Twitter their emails and says send pitches to. So I'm gonna share something really quick here. Share the screen if I can. Okay, so this was a report here. You probably can't see a lot of it, but this was how local news outlets fail to serve Black audience. Everybody in Ready, Set, Go, Speak happened to be a Black audience. And so what Ken said in this particular article, this was on Axios Detroit, really talking about how the media does not have good coverage, because one of the things it says, as the news industry has shrunk, so has the number of Black reporters. And because this is Detroit, especially in Detroit. So it's no big deal that we all know this, right? That the news industry is shrinking, that at a certain point in time, you're going to find that newspapers are thinner. That means they don't have as much news. That means they won't have much as reporters. Black people, last hired, first fired type of thing. It's just within every industry, not just media, right? So you're finding that at last. So at a certain point in time, if you are find an African-American reporter, have some empathy for them, knowing that they're one of the few. They may be concerned about their job. They may want to help you, but you also have to help them. One of the things I always talk about, if you want to be in the Black press, subscribe to the Black press, support the Black press, not just Black Enterprise or Ebony and Jet and that kind of thing. The other thing I sent was a Muck Rack. not just Black journalists, but journalists themselves, they are inundated with pitches all the time. And a lot of times it's because of the timing of it. And you have to make them understand why your story is important right then, right there, because they're on a deadline and they're always on a cycle of that. So if you understand that Black reporters are rare and you're trying to get their attention with something that probably won't really help them in the long term in their job, because that is their job, figure out what else you can do. And how do you figure out how to help anybody? You have to understand a little bit more about them. Ken even said that, if you realize Facebook, everybody's on Facebook, if you realize it's a reporter who you've been following that it's their birthday, he says, give him a birthday shout out. That's like so simple to do. So a lot of this has to do with networking and relationship building. So the first way to build relationships or develop relationships with the media is to go where they are. To go where they are. A good example, what Ken told me today. So there was this donut place in Detroit. It was called Dutch Girl. Mark knows Dutch Girl. It had been closed since COVID, but it was just like iconic donuts, right? Like the Detroit's Krispy Kreme. It was closed, but it just reopened. And so the line was around the block like crazy. Media were there. One of the things he said, if I was a publicist, I would have my client go and stand in the line. I'm sorry, I promise you this is what he said. Stand in the line, knowing that all the major TV stations are going to be there. And at that point, warm chatter with the reporter. Tell them a little bit about who you are and what you do. He said, some press is better than no press. He says you could be standing in the Dutch Girl donut line, but you are still gonna be on TV. I was like, really? He said yes. He said it happened because he deals with politicians. So politicians are always trying to get some kind of press. That's very unconventional, but go where they are. If we're all Black, NABJ, National Association of Black Journalists, they have a convention every year. It's in Chicago. If you can get to Chicago, nabjconvention.com, July 31st through August 2nd. It is swarming with journalists. I mean, we got Roland Martin and all the major stars, but then everybody in between, the producers of the lifestyle shows and all those things. And you get a directory of who is there. So go where they are, meet them in the hallway, go to the conferences, go to the workshop. Can you go as a regular person, as a regular Black person? Yes, you can, as an associate. You just got to go and find out. Someone like me has to tell someone like you that you can go. NABJconvention.com. They are really planning for that. They have one every single year, and they've had one for over I think it started in 1978, so over 45 years. Okay, so it's been around for a long time. They're an advocate group for Black journalists. So go to conferences where they are, they're owned, but also if you have a place where you know that the media will be there. For instance, in Detroit, there could be the auto show, right? It could be the auto show. The auto show will have a radio row of all of the radio people. Go to that, meet them, exchange cards, take pictures. He says, even take a selfie. It's like, hey, let's take a selfie. And then a few months later say, hey, I met you at Radio Row. We took a picture, this and that. I would love for you to know a little bit more about I like to take you for coffee or lunch or do a virtual coffee. Building relationships one-on-one, just like you would with anything, is so important. If you are an author, a lot of times you could go to BEA, Book Expo of America. Book Expo America is kind of like the auto show for cars. So media are there. Or you can go to NRB if you're a Christian writer. National Religious Broadcasters, media are there. TBN is there. It's like, well, how do I get on these shows? They are there. They're going to the big conventions. They are there. That's part of their job, to cover like big conferences and big conventions. The Stellar Awards, that's one too. The media will be there. Go to that if you're a Christian. ICRS, International Christian Retail Association, is a big conference to go to where the media are there. They have what they call that whole area where it's where the media are. They're doing interviews in the particular rooms. Now, one of the things that I always tell clients, and a couple of my clients, Kim Brooks did this as well, and Kevin Wayne Johnson's, they will go to these conferences and they will know that the media will have their whole, like the media room, right? So they have a media room, big sign on it says media room. At the conference, it says media room. Where do you go? Go to the conference, it's cool, but go to the media room. Hang out at the media room. Put your materials, your stellar marketing materials on the desk, because when the media comes in, they're looking for stuff that they can write on. They're sent as a job to cover that. So your job is to be in their face, because now it's like, oh, this is easy. What are you talking? I can interview you on the spot. So going to the media rooms are really, really important. And when you're going to big conferences, even, I don't know, like a NABJ or the Congressional Black Caucus, they all have what they call the media rooms. And you can actually put things on the table for those journalists to pick up. Now, you can actually go to the media room, whoever's in charge of it, and say, hey, do you have a list of the journalists that are here? There you go. That's number one. Number two, follow them on social media on all their stories, and some of them even have blogs. Be their friend. You know how to be a friend. A friend is someone that will be helpful to them. A friend is someone who retweets them. A friend is someone who sends them a Christmas card, gives them a birthday shout out. Someone who likes their content on Facebook. Trust me, they know. They know. Not just always DMing them. Hey, write on my stuff. Don't be a nuisance. Be their friend. And one of the things Ken gave me a really compliment. He says, you know what? He says, I'm so busy. He said, but when I see you call, I pick up. Why? Because I'm his friend. I will do things for him, even when it's not involving something about me or my clients. I will then say, hey, Ken will be interested in that. So that's part of it. The other thing is cultivate the connection, meaning that if you see a reporter that covers food, say like what Lindsay did, see what else. What school did he go to? What fraternity is he in? Well, you may not be in the same fraternity. Was he in the Navy? Find some kind of common denominator. What hometown are you from? What school did you go to? Do you have kids? Do you have a dog? What kind of dog you have? I got the same. People are always looking for some kind of common denominator, because that makes them more human and you make yourself more relatable. I can't underestimate that enough. I just talked yesterday with George Frazier, right? Mr. Networker, Power Networking. He is a master at networking. He can talk to an ant and actually befriend the ant. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, it is a skill that you have to be used to talking to and listening to other people to develop the relationship. They are human. That's why I gave you all the reports. I gave you the journalism report, so you can just see they're overworked and underpaid. Most journalists are not paid a lot of money. They are doing it because they love it. And especially if it, depending on what cycle they are, the first 5 years, basically they could make as much working at TJ Maxx as being a reporter. Sometimes they're paid like $50 a story. Right? It's crazy. I just saw a reporter who writes for Forbes on LinkedIn, and she said, I left journalism world. I'm now in PR. She said, because they don't pay me enough. Now you would think like, oh, a big organization like Forbes, it's not like they are paid a lot. So that's really one of the main things, is we want to make sure that we are cognizant of that, because they're not making big money. And so I'm not saying that you got to have payola, right? You can say, hey, write this story, I'm gonna pay you some money. But you can say, here's some tickets to, I know you like, I don't know, I'm just saying this, Beyonce. You would become their best friend, right? I got some tickets to Beyonce. So things like that, when you think of them, or that they like certain things, and you could say, hey, I have tickets to this. It could be the Grand Prix or whatever like that. The other thing is that, and Ken said this is one of the things that he said, it says, get their name right. I know people have different names, and get their name right. Double check, triple. He said, there's one way. He says, I don't care how good your pitch is, but if you can't figure out my name, we're not going to be friends. So make sure that you spell their name correctly, and make sure that you make it short. He said he likes bullets in his in his he likes bullets uh in his pitches, so they could say bam bam bam, this is the kind of thing they want. The other thing is, I said this before, be persistent but don't pester. Pester is like every day. Hi, I'm on the line, Dawn. Sorry about that. Meaning don't pester. Okay. So pester is like, I'm following up. I'm following up. With the same dang on subject line and the same little 3 words. I'm following up. So if you are going to follow up, which is what you want to do, give it and say, hey, I don't know if you knew, but this story is important because June is National Music Month. Hey, I'm following up because we just saw Kendrick Lamar and Drake, they have a beef, and this might be something that we tie into, so you're trying to show relevancy, timeliness, and news of why their audience should care, not news why you should care, but why their audience should care. And it does take some homework. It does take some research. And the fourth thing is deliver the goods. Prove you're an expert, a dependable source. If they send you an email, respond right away. They're looking for information right away. Don't make them search all over for your contact. Don't make them search all over for your phone number. If you're good, especially for television, if you're good and you come on television on set early, dressed appropriately, giving good sound bites, by far really delivering value and not selling, even though I know you want to sell your book and your course and your coaching, don't do that. They will love you, have you come back. Give me an example. Dr. Portia Lockett, she was pitched and she is now a regular on Fox 2 News on a regular basis. And she comes in and talks about grief and that kind of thing. So we pitched her in December because in December, around the holidays, people are really, who have lost loved ones, that is a time where they have a lot of emotions. So we pitched her in December with a story that was already written in the Women's Journal. So I don't know if some of you have been in Women's Journal. Pitched her a little bit of story. The story read something like, hey, December is a time where people are kind of have holiday blues because they've lost loved ones. Portia Lockett is an expert grief counselor. Here's a link to a recent story. She would make a good guess. That's all I said. And I said, 1, 2, 3, we could talk about this. So I set up the show segment ideas. So you always want to have show segment ideas. Give them some show segment ideas. Fine. About 4 or 5 days later, great, have her in. Is she available on this date? I have to say, yes, they are. I don't ever say, well, I don't know. No, she was going to be ready, set, go, speak. Okay. It's like, yes, she's going to be ready. She was ready, went in there, killed it. They said, you were so good. This is always when oh, you were so good. We got to have you back. What do? Make sure that we have them back. We give them another idea for January. January is the beginning of the year. We give it an angle. We give it a spin. Why she can come in January, February, Valentine's Day, March, April, all the way through Mother's Day. Mother's Day, oh, she's on again. She's talking about, people who lost their moms. So you want to give them, how do we say, you want to make their job easy. You want to almost lay out what it is that they're going to do. So it's a no-brainer for them to think like, oh yeah, I'm gonna bring. You don't want to be extra. You don't want to be difficult. You don't want to be that person, okay? Because they will tell other people and then you will never go back. Last thing, number that was 5. I'll say them all again. Number 6, start locally. Start locally. Everybody wants to be on Tamara Hall. Everybody wants to be on GMA. Everybody wants to be like on Oprah Super Soul Sunday. Start locally. Start online. Start with podcasts. I wrote down exactly, if I were starting over today in my business, where would I actually go first? Some of the things I would do online. I would do CEO Weekly. I would do New York Weekly. I would do Women's Journal. I would do Black News. I would cover all of those different stories online. And I would then take those links and send it to my broadcast in my local area. I would also do things like Canvas Rebel. Those things are good for SEO, and it's a Q&A. You write it, but I would do things like that. I would definitely do YouTube, right? Those are the things that Lindsay was just saying for his client that got it cinched the deal. her YouTube channel showed she had consistency, that she knew what she was talking about, and it was something that he could say, hey, this will make a good story, because you can visually see all of that. So YouTube, I would definitely make sure I was in something like Authority Magazine. Ready, Set, Go, Speak. I give you all those links all the time about Authority Magazine. Why? Because Authority positions you as what? An authority. So the Authority Magazine, I don't know, Eva, Linda, but I put them in there. I don't babysit. When I put the links in there, I put in pictures, places where you could pitch all the time, every week. You got to find out if it's good for you or if it's not. But Authority Magazine, they have so many different areas where you can actually pitch. I would also then, when I talk about starting locally, the Black press. So just about every major city has a Black newspaper, or definitely a Black radio. And then on the weekends, they some of the network shows, they have community affairs show. So I would start there locally, because when you start locally, it's just getting out and there, building up the media bigger and bigger, because you don't want to really get out there and say a national show and you have not had any practice, not even on YouTube yet, right? Because you don't know how you sound, and you would be really nervous if you were given that opportunity and someone handed you the microphone and said, hey, we'd like you to come on our show, and they hand you the mic and you're like, because you've not had any practice. So I always tell people, I don't even care if it's cable at this point. It could be like one of those local origination stations, but get some footage of yourself so you can hear and see yourself. I do the Speak, Sell, Shine, so people can hear how they sound, how they look. Sometimes we think we sound better than we actually do. There's a filler word that I use all the time that I work on. I don't know if anybody knows what that is. It's the word actually. I say that all the time, that I say the word, but there's some people that say right as a punctuation after every sentence, right? Or there's someone that will say, know what I mean? Or the typical, you know. Work on those things in the local market before we hit the big time and hit the national stages and media places. Those are the things that you want to do. And the last thing, this is Ken said this is really good to do as well, and I didn't even go over all these, but send a video, whether it's a Loom, a YouTube, a short, but make sure you do that. But also invite them to your presentation. So one of the things that Teach and Ready, Set, Go, Speak is that we should have our own signature events. We should have our own signature events, and we put it out there, and we're like the person that is doing these major events, whether it's a workshop, seminar, conference, right? Invite the media to it. Don't just send them a thing and say, hey, it's happening, but call them and actually invite them to the event to be your guest. It's a different way of spinning, that you want them to cover you, but you want them to come to your event to be the guest. Now, the reporter has to get something out of it, obviously, besides a lunch, but it has to be relevant. If it's DEI, invite them to hear your presentation that you're doing, because they are the beat reporter for race relations in their areas. This is locally. So this is how you get people who are local to pay attention. Even if they don't come, at least you have put it out there and you are now on their radar, and you're making sure that you're building some kind of relationship. It's just a fresh idea to really get them to understand them. I can't stress enough, knowing and researching what a reporter does, a producer does, and knowing the construct of how a newsroom works are very important. Because if you're going to find, and I always tell people in Ready, Set, Go, Speak, to make a list of at least 10 media outlets that you want to hit. Out of the 10, write down who at that. Then go and research the who. Before you pitch them, it will make you feel more comfortable, because you know who you're talking to. You may find out that you all both were born in the same city. You may find out that you're both Deltas. You may find out whatever it is, you can make that reference. And that's okay, because they are human too. In the Virtual Media Summit, I interviewed a lot of the NABJ. A lot of them are Hall of Famers. Vicki Thomas was one of them. And she said exactly, being in the business 40 years, what she's looking for. Janine, you should go in there and actually listen to all of those. April Morton, all of them, they have their stories. They're telling you their stories, how they started, why they're in it, what they're looking for, and how to pitch them. That's gold. if you want to know more about anything, you're going to have to do the research, the whole thing. The last thing, invite them to your presentations. And what he said is, no, context is important. Relationships are important. Knowing around the holidays, send them a Christmas card, birthday, send them gifts. The main thing he said is be upfront. You can even say, hey, I've got something I'd like to share. That's being upfront. I got something I want to share that I think you would be interested in, kind of like the way Lindsay did. Timing is everything. For anything that I have pitched and people have gotten hits for, is because of the timing. And it's because I know the industry enough and know what the timing of when's a good time to call them, what's a good time for me to check back. If they say check back with me, please do make sure you do that. The lowest hanging fruit a lot of times is what's going on in the news cycle. So you do have to pay attention to what's going on in the news. I mean, if something is trending in the news, you'll know by watching headline news. You don't have to be a news junkie and watch it all day. The other thing is to make sure that you know everything about the reporter, everything about their organization, and everything about their beat, and develop that relationship from there. And go back to the old saying, and then I'm going to close here. It's not about what you know. It's about who you know. And knowing them is really, really the key in developing a relationship, and caring about what it is that they're doing. Of course, if it's juicy news, it doesn't matter. But if you're really like not that celebrity news, you have to do these other things. Knowing how to develop a relationship. Once they actually do the story on you or cover you or give you the segment, please keep in touch with them. Don't just like it's a one and done, like wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. No, you want to keep in touch with them. You want to see if there's future stories that you could do. So that's it. Is there any questions, Lindsay? Did I answer enough questions about the relationships here without going over and over? But the main thing he says, people like you, they're gonna do you a solid. I was like, a solid. I was like, what does that term mean? But they'll do a favor.
Oh, no, I think you covered everything. Most the part I want to just reemphasize is the doing for yourself, the opportunities that you have, particularly with YouTube, to put yourself on camera and develop those skills. I actually have a chef a different chef, not the same one we were talking about before, who is now the regular chef on the local news because he came on one time. They brought him on one time and he did such a great job that they decided to keep bringing him back. And he was able to do such a great job because we started his cooking show about 3 months prior. So he'd had so many repetitions. He's publishing a video every week. He had so many on-camera repetitions that he was good on camera. He was really good on camera. And he did that on live TV. And they decided, okay, well, you're going to be our chef that we contact, that we bring on regularly to talk about stuff. And now they actually promote his YouTube channel. When he comes on, they talk about it a lot. Like, wow, go check out his channel. They put it on the screen. Here's his YouTube channel handle, and all. It's pretty incredible, and it all came about because of what he did for himself first, rather than going out and saying, "Hey, can I get some coverage?"
Right.
He covered himself.
That is any practice. So you're practicing on YouTube, and then by the time you get to the TV, you sound good. It reminds me of Dr. Geneva. Dr. Geneva really is I guess you would say she's an icon for an encore career, right? She had spent 40 years in nonprofit management, and then she wanted to break out into something different. So encore careers is what she talked about. And so the best place that I could see, and this is how I do when I deal with my private clients, is like, where's the best places for them to get the biggest bang for the buck? So of course we started some local, but I said AARP. That's really like the main thing, because people who are AARP, they are retired, but they're not really retired. They have another career. It's another career. It's like encore, this is the next thing. So we got her in to write for their newsletter. We got her to moderate one of the panels when they came locally. And now AARP is part of the thing, and also did some webinars for them as well for the state of Michigan. But that only happened because we know we're matching her message with that with that particular media, with that particular platform. Hers was like, yes, I'm 70 plus, but I'm not done yet. And so that's where she's inspiring for AARP. She's like their poster child. That's what I said, not the icon. She's a poster child for the AARP for those encore careers. So finding your niche and then it can grow from there is so, so important. And knowing the hierarchy of the newsroom, knowing the titles, you could go to LinkedIn and find that out. If you're in Ready, Set, Go, Speak, I go over all of that in the Virtual Media Summit. There's a PR Power course. There are things in Ready, Set, Go, Speak. There are templates that will give you that edge to do it faster and quicker. Again, go to Ready, Set, Go, Speak. Join us over there. I see Linda is here, Eva, Janine, Linda Fagans, and Donna Marie. I see Donna there as well. I'm not putting you on camera, Donna, so I'll just say hello. Just say hello. But thank you all for joining us today. It's one of the things I love talking about, PR, how to get it, how to leverage it, and really how to develop those relationships so they're long-term. You will always have one media person that you know will be your go-to, but that only happens over time. And you know that you can always call them. Even if they can't help you, they will know another media friend that can. And so media people know each other. So that's some of the things too. Yep. Oh, so Linda, just one last thing. Linda says, since I have been on this platform, I have been featured in the Women's Journal, a podcast recently in particular, able to promote the training program for a nonprofit. Exactly. Having a long form story, telling your story is key. And remember, journalists are storytellers. So they're looking for stories. That's really it. So we got to just have a good one that's interesting, one that's timely, newsworthy, and one that makes them think like, why should I care? Like what's different about this? So we want to make sure that it's relevant. So with that, Lindsay, thank you so much for sharing your story, your success. That's a big deal. That Washingtonian is a big, big deal. It is really cool. And it just took a simple pitch. Yeah, that's it.
One email.
One email. That's it. So at the very least, spend at least 15 minutes a day on media relations. That's it. That's it. So with that, I'm Pam Perry, and I'm out of here. And I will talk with you guys later. God bless.
You've been listening to the Get Out There and Get Known podcast, brought to you by PamPerryPR.com, where you'll get insider tips on how to build your platform, pitch the media, and promote yourself with confidence. Head over to PamPerryPR.com and get the exclusive video training on the 7 must-have marketing materials you need before you pitch. In order to be considered in media places or